Welcome to episode 12 of Life Without Cravings. In this episode, I'm going to teach you why most people who are working with food addicts are recommending their patients, and I'm going to call them patients for a reason, and I'm going to tell you about that soon, but they recommend their patients to avoid any triggers, like avoid looking at beautiful food, whether that be on the TV or if it's a picture. They tell them to take the long way around the bakery because they don't want the patients to be in situations where they might be tempted to give in to their cravings. So anything that could be triggering, they recommend that they don't do that. And I think that this is the wrong approach. And I will tell you why I think that they are making a huge mistake in recommending this and promoting this way of dealing with food addiction. And yeah, I think it's a huge mistake, capital letters. So several years ago, when I was kind of new to doing this work and I had just managed to learn how to take control of my cravings, so everything was still quite new to me and I was fascinated with how things were working, how my brain is working. So I was just trying to learn as much as I could about food addiction, and I was soaking up like everything that this all the knowledge that this woman had. She's an expert in the field of food addiction, and I'm not going to mention her name, but she is really knowledgeable and she's having a lot of success with her people. I'm not here to talk ill about anyone, but when she publicly advised the people who were following her to avoid all the triggers, I started to think, this is not for me. So what she was saying was that she was driving home from work and they had some road works going on, so they had closed off the exit that she needed to take, and the next exit was passing by a McDonald's. So she couldn't take this exit. She chose to drive an extra 20 minutes to find an exit that could take her home, but that wouldn't go past a McDonald's. And this is a woman who's been abstinent from these foods for over 2 decades. Imagine that. So the signal that she's sending out is that no matter how long you have been abstinent, you can never put yourself in a situation where you're going to be triggered, because then you're probably going to fall off the wagon and then you're screwed. There is no trust in yourself when you're sending that message. She's telling me that she doesn't trust herself to not drive past the drive-by at McDonald's after having not eaten any crap food for 20 years or more. And that is just, my type A brain just like blew out. I can't even conceive of this. My brain is just like, that is such a waste of time. Why would you do that? Why not just learn how to deal with your cravings so that you don't have to stop at the drive-by or even have to think about it anymore? So yes, it's a waste of time, but even more importantly, like the message that she was sending out to everyone else is that even if you haven't had junk food in 2 decades, you cannot trust yourself to drive past the McDonald's or to expose yourself to any of the triggers that you have had in the past. And that is crazy. It's so crazy I don't have words for it. Like, crazy isn't strong enough. 20 years and you still can't drive past the McDonald's, then you haven't done your work right, or there's something missing. Luckily for me, at this point, I already knew how to deal with my cravings, and I knew that this was completely unnecessary because I had already learned how to control my cravings when I'm exposed to a trigger. But it's kind of almost going beyond that, because I think what these experts are teaching is actually quite dangerous. Because if you think about it, like, the most awesome thing about quitting is the freedom that comes with it. The freedom to be able to choose, the freedom to not having to feel that compulsion driving me to need to buy or eat something that I don't actually want to eat or buy. But if you have to avoid every single trigger that you have ever had for the rest of your life because you can't trust yourself, you're just moving from the food prison to the complete environment prison. I don't know what the prison is called. But you're just like moving from one prison to another. So now you might have the health that you want because you're not eating all that crap, but your mind is still imprisoned. And the reason that this is so commonly advised is because it's the easy way of doing it. It's the easy way of treating people with food addiction. Because if you can just say, if you avoid your triggers, you're going to be fine. It's relatively easy to have people quit if they are never around triggers. And then if they are around a trigger because they can't avoid it, they probably tell you to use willpower. Stay focused on what you want. Just push it away. Try to not think about it. All of those things that I teach my clients to think about, because we want to learn how to handle that. So we want to be able to move around in the world freely despite the foods that are everywhere and people wanting us to eat things and drive-bys, whatever it is for you. That should not have such an impact on your life. Like, you want to be in control. You don't want McDonald's to be in control of what you're doing. Ever. And this actually makes me think back that when, this must have been like 25, 30 years ago, like a very long time ago. We have this reality TV series in Sweden, where I was at that time. And I think in the US, I think it's called Survivor. We call it Expedition Robinson. So when I watched that, I was thinking, like, I would never do that. And then, well, actually, there is a positive side effect of doing that. If they put me on a desert island together with a group of other people, I don't actually need the other people, but that's what's happening in the game show. If they put me on there, I can't go and buy anything containing sugar. And I would be forced to quit. And at the time, I believed that if I could just get over that hump and quit sugar for a while and never touch it again, I would be fine. It's when I'm touching it that the cravings are getting worse. So if I could just kind of detox myself and stay away from sugar for a period of time, I would be able to cure that sugar addiction. Not that I would ever actually apply to a show like that, because I think it's horrendous, but like the payoff that I would get from it, like get rid of my sugar addiction, that is really, really tempting, because I believed that this was the solution that I needed. I was like, I wonder if there is anything like a private thing that you can do. Like just go and ask them to drop you off on an island and I would just bring food for a month or whatever, but nothing with sugar in. And then I would be like a new person when I get out of there. I had lots of ideas about this, as you can hear. So my brain was telling me, like, you have this one opportunity. Like if you did apply and if you did this, like you can go on Expedition Robinson and then never have problems with sugar again. Or you can be a sugar addict for the rest of your life. It was very black and white. It didn't even consider that there was another solution. I was so sure that this is what I need. And those are some crazy thoughts. And it's reinforcing my belief that I'm not in control. And that's never a good thing. And that is exactly the signal that I think that she was sending out by telling that story. You're never going to be in control. No matter what you do, you're always going to have to keep watching your own back. Make sure that those triggers are not getting you. And that's like, just thinking about that is exhausting to me. I feel like, oh, really? There are people out there living their lives like that. They're really proud that they managed to quit. And they're in so much pain because they are constantly having to avoid putting themselves in situations that they think are dangerous, like where they could potentially give in and end up binging again. But and one of the reasons that this is recommended is because they say that even if you quit, you will be an addict for life. And I don't subscribe to that. I usually say, like, if I'm going on someone else's podcast, I want to say, like, yes, I'm a sugar addict in recovery, because people know what that means. But I'm starting to think that I'm doing a disservice by saying that. And I'm going to have to think about that before going on my next guest podcast, what I actually would like to, how I would like to describe myself, because I don't want to send out the same message. I don't think that would benefit anyone. So yes, we have this neural pathway that tells us to eat because we have done it so many times. And it will always be there. But you can retrain your brain to just lower that desire for the carbs and for these foods that you don't want to eat. And all of that is within your control. And that is a permanent solution. But once you have practiced it enough, you're not going to have to think about it. You just do it over and over again until you can put it on autopilot. Then you're done. You might have like an occasional blip here and there if something is happening, like something extraordinary or whatever. But then you know you have to just disengage that part of the brain that acts on impulse and just take control again, because you already know how to do it. So there is no real danger there. And this is what I think that all of these experts are missing. They are really, really good at knowing what is happening on a physiological level in the brain, a lot better than me. They know how the habit loop is working, and that it's always starting with a trigger, which then leads to an urge to eat something or do something, and then that in turn leads to getting a response. And that closes the habit loop. So then the habit loop is fulfilled and you're getting that reward signal. And the reward signal will make it even more likely that you're going to repeat this behavior because it was pleasurable for you. So this makes it like every time you do it, it's going to make it more likely that it's going to happen again, and it's going to strengthen this habit loop. So the part that they are missing is that when we feel an urge or have a craving, I say craving and I use them kind of interchangeably. They are slightly different, but I don't bother with making a difference between them. It's just like a feeling in your body. So for me, that is always like jaw tension and tension along like my sternum and my throat. And I also salivate like a dog. Like I get more saliva in my mouth when I'm thinking about just having ice cream or a cake or something. That's a show of my craving. That's showing me that I'm having a craving. And that is what's happening when I have food cravings specifically, I should say. And that is what is making me go eat. The feeling in my body is what drives me to go and eat, which is a little bit crazy, but it does. But none of these feelings in my body actually forces me to go eat. It's just a learned behavior. So what they are missing is that we are fully capable of learning how to be okay with feeling uncomfortable, because it is uncomfortable. For whatever reason, it's uncomfortable to be salivating and having this tension. It's not really, when you think about it, but we perceive it as uncomfortable. And some people are telling me that they have like a whole body experience, and it's just like everything is tingling and it feels like they're going to jump out of the skin if they don't get it. So they might have more of a physical reaction than I have. But if you can just learn how to be with that feeling and be okay with not feeling great in your body all the time, there's no reason for you to go and eat. If you were 100% willing to feel negative emotions, there would be no need whatsoever for you to keep eating as a response to this craving. So that's where you can make your commitment. I'm committed to feeling negative emotions in my body no matter what. You can do that. You don't have to give in to the cravings again, ever. And you're not even going to have to feel that feeling every day for the rest of your life. That's going to start kind of going down. It's going to be less intense very quickly, and eventually you're not even going to feel it. It's like a craving for me nowadays is just like someone's waving a banner like, I want chocolate, and then it's gone, but I don't feel it in my body anymore, which is great. I don't even have to think about it. It's like, yeah, chocolate would be nice, but the emotional connection isn't there anymore, which is awesome. So just keep that in mind, that this is optional. You can actually just have a craving and be okay with it. And that's the truth. You don't have to be happy about it, but you can be accepting of this factor, because everything that we do is driven by emotions. We don't consider our emotions when we treat food addiction, and that's where it goes wrong. Or any addiction for that matter. They teach them a lot of stuff, and a lot of addiction recovery is about taking people out of the environment where they have been abusing whatever substance or whatever they're using. That's the same thing. We're avoiding the trigger because we assume that this environment is what is triggering them and that they are not capable of saying no. And sure, might work for some people, but you always have to be on your toes. And right now I'm talking about food addiction, not like heroin or something like that. But I think it's a huge mistake. I believe that food addiction can be treated in a permanent way. And that is just a skill that you need to learn and then practice. And the longer you do it for, the easier it's going to be to not even have to think about it and still not giving in to any cravings. Our brains are lazy. They don't want to put energy into doing things that they already know how to do. And that's why it's really hard to change a behavior in the first instance. Because our brains have been doing it for such a long time. It's something that is working for us. And it's just thinking, hey, why would you want to change this? This is already working. Why make this effort? That's not safe. We're just wasting energy trying to change something that doesn't matter. That's what your primitive part of the brain is going to tell you. And then we have to keep paying attention to the new behavior. And then we need to keep practicing it enough times for that new behavior to be put on autopilot, and then you're there. So it's not like the process isn't necessarily a very long process. It's more about how many times you're practicing it. If you can practice it 100 times in a week, you're going to be there very, very quickly. But if you're only practicing 3 times per week, it might take you a year to get there. So every single time you're doing it the way that you want to do it, you're handling it in the way that you want to handle it, you're getting one more repetition in, and you're just building this habit loop. And I don't know how many repetitions you need to go through to be successful. It's most likely very different for different people. But let's say that it was 100. Like, how quickly can you do 100? If that's all you have to do. Even if you're not fully there after 100 repetitions, you're going to be a lot closer to your goal after 100 repetitions than you were with 1 or 0. So it's all worth it. And it's all worth doing. And when that happens, it's like when you've done 100 repetitions, the bulk of the exercise is done. It's probably going to be more or less on autopilot when you've done it that many times. I would be surprised to find someone who's really struggling still, doing it the right way, and still not being able to do it after 100 repetitions. So I'm not saying that the cravings will never come back, but because our brains are really sneaky, but you know how have the skill to handle it, you know what to do. So if they do come back, you have practiced this more than 100 times by now, and you just have to kind of disengage the autopilot, turn on the manual, and manually redirect your brain to perform the new behavior that you have been practiced that many times. And this might happen, often it can happen in the beginning because the brain is going to try, and you're like, no, we're having this new behavior. And then it's going to be like, okay, I'm going to have a huge tantrum now. And it's going to give you this massive craving and just hope that it's going to work. And a lot of people are going to give in then. They're like, oh my God, something's wrong. I haven't had cravings for weeks and now this is happening. It must mean that there's a sign that I need to go and eat chocolate. No, it's just your brain trying to get you back to where it feels safe. So expect that to happen. And it might happen a year or 2 down the line as well. And you'd be like, oh, what's going on? But at that time, you're probably so well practiced in your new behavior that you're going to be more surprised and not actually so much compulsed to go and eat it. So expect your brain to throw a few tantrums along the way, and all of that is completely normal. It happens for everyone. But it doesn't mean that you are going to fall off the wagon again and end up in a several month-long binge or something. Maybe you do eat something one day that you didn't want to eat. That's okay. No one is perfect. But what matters is how you're handling it. Are you beating yourself up about it? Not a good way of handling it. Are you feeling disappointed with yourself? Probably not a great feeling to have either. If you just swap those to being curious about it and ask yourself why did this happen now all of a sudden? And then what can I do differently if this exact thing happens again? you're building awareness of what went wrong so that you can just spot it the next time it's going to happen. And then you're not going to do it the next time because now you learned from this experience. And that's necessary for most people to do it. Some people do it with sort of innocent things, and some people do it with really bad stuff that they really don't want to touch. But I don't think I had a client who hasn't done it at all yet. So it will happen. And sometimes the brain is really sneaky, and that's fine. That's what our brains are doing. So just like explore what you could have done differently and learn from every single mistake that you make. And I think we need to let go of the pressure. Like, we have this self-imposed image of ourselves, of someone somehow being imperfect because we're struggling with food. Your brain is perfect. It's doing a tremendous job of keeping you safe and making sure that you have the things that it thinks that you need for survival. It's doing exactly what it was meant to be doing. So everyone who's addicted to food, they just have really efficient brains that works perfectly. The only problem here is that the brain is not in the right environment, the environment that it was created to be in. And that is actually, then it would be really beneficial to us. And that's not your brain's fault. Absolutely 100% not your brain's fault. It's society's fault and the food manufacturers and whatever people who present all of this stuff to us as food. So show yourself a little bit of love and compassion, because you are perfect as you is. You are as you is, as you are. And all that is lacking is just like that skill that you don't have yet. The skill that no one has taught you, by the way. You're not meant to be born with that skill. So don't beat yourself up about that either. It's not your fault. And it's really worth learning this skill, because when you do, you will know that true food freedom feels like the world is just opening up and everything feels like within your grasp. There won't be any more compulsive, obsessive eating, and you won't feel that pressure to, like, this tight chest pressure that you feel when you know that you can just, I can choose what I want to eat, and I can choose it based on what I think is best for my body, not what my taste buds are telling me right now on my brain. It's totally worth spending a bit of time and energy on learning how to do this. And if you're watching this episode when it goes live, we're going to start a new Master Your Carb Cravings challenge in a week's time. I'm putting the URL for the sign up page in the description, so you can just go down, click on it, and put it on top, and it will just take you from there and you can sign up, and we're starting next Monday. So just in short, don't avoid your triggers. This is funny because someone was recently sending me a comment and said, your intro might be a little bit triggering on your thumbnails. And I was like, yes, that's what I want it to be. I don't want to cause anyone to go off rails because they see the intro, but I want to make a statement here. I want to make a point that we don't have to avoid this. I'm a sugar addict. I'm not getting triggered by that anymore because I have learned how to do this. Now I went off on a tangent again. But what I wanted to say, just like, don't avoid your triggers. It will not make you feel like you're in control when you do. And ultimately, it will just put you in a healthier prison. Possibly. Or maybe not. I don't know. But you're still going to be in prison and not feeling like you're free and that you can't do whatever you want to do. And then acknowledge that you're already perfect. Like, your brain is just doing its job. Remember that. And it's being an A+ student. You have a really, really good brain. Super good at what it's doing. And then recognize that this is just a skill. It's a skill that you haven't learned yet, but you're 100% capable of learning this skill, and you have the power of doing this. Don't ever doubt that you can't learn this skill. Everyone can learn it. So that was all that I had for you today, and don't forget to sign up for the challenge if you want to start to take action on this and learn how to do it and start implementing it in your life, because in the challenge, I'm going to be there every day. I'm going to be live streaming trainings. We are having homework. I will help you with that homework. I'll give you feedback, and I will help you to implement all of this in your life if that's what you need. Or you can do it on your own, but join the challenge. Don't be shy. It's completely free. You can just sign up, take part, but do treat it as something that you want to commit to for a week. That's the way that you're going to get the results. We're starting on the 24th of October. I will see you again next week. Bye!